Everyone, welcome to our session on streamlining DataSKY API, education management, and Google Sheets. We're excited to explore how these tools can make your data tasks easier and more efficient. I'm Kristen Jackson, and I'll be the moderator for today's. As for webinar housekeeping, we will email a link to the webinar recording. Audio for this webinar is broadcast through your computer speakers. As we move through the presentation, feel free to add your questions to the Q&A section. We'll be checking in and addressing them throughout the session to keep the presentation interactive and ensure your specific interests are covered. You can find the slides for this presentation in the Docs section. Refresh your browser to clear up most audio or technical issues. Use the cogwheel to adjust your settings. And now I'll hand it over to Nick and Todd to introduce themselves.
Hi, all. Todd, I'm going to let you, Kristen, if we can just cancel your screen share there for a second. Perfect. Then, yes. Todd's name is incorrectly captioned as Kristen. But Todd will introduce himself here in a second. So my name is Nick Marchese. I'm the Director of Academic and Strategic Tech at the Emma Willard School in Troy, New York, and the founder of Collar City Consulting, focusing on Blackbaud solutions and Google integrations.
And hello, I'm Todd Payton. I'm not Kristen. And I'm the Applications and Database Manager at St. Albans School in Washington, D.C.
So a little bit of our agenda today. So I'm going to just do a little bit of background and level setting for folks who aren't already familiar with some of the work I've done. If you are, then this will be a quick recap. And then Todd's going to go ahead and share some of his lessons learned and lived experience with the solution that we put in place a little while ago. And then again, I think Kristen said, use the Q&A, use the chat, ask questions, and we'll definitely have some time for answering those. All right, so a little bit of background. For the last 2 years before this, I've given a BB Dev Days presentation around syncing advanced lists via the Sky API with Google Sheets using Google Apps Script. It's commonly referred to as a breaking into Blackbaud script, essentially as a way to automatically call and pull the data from advanced lists in a scheduled automatic way. So that way you can put it into Sheets and then do whatever you want to do with it once it's in Sheets. Today Todd's gonna share a little bit about how he's used that. So if we go to the next slide. So a little bit of the background of why use this. So without Sky API, when you run an advanced list on the platform, the data is only up to date based on the last time you pulled out that data. So if you ran it and then 10 minutes later, it's going to be out of date. So you also need somebody to manually pull that data on a computer. And you end up with all of these different Excel or CSV files with very similar names: student list 1, student list 2, student list final. Don't worry, student list official. So which one of these are we actually using? But when you integrate Sky API with Google Workspace, so your data is going to always remain up to date and in sync. If you made a change, no problem. It's just automatically going to update for you. You won't need somebody to actually be clicking that. It'll automatically be happening. So you just set it up and you're good to go. You can go away, get some more vacations. Okay. No more reliance on end users' computers. Again, this is all cloud-based with Google Apps Script. And then more vacations. And then you can eliminate all of those duplicate Excel files that are clogging up your hard drive. So you can figure out what you're going to do with all of that extra hard drive space. And then just some things to kind of point out here. So what we're talking about here is the version of the solution that Todd has been working with for a while now. And all of this is something that can be built. It has been built, but you could also build it on your own. I'm running a session later today on Google Apps Script, so if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, you can. So some of the things: automatic ability to sync advanced lists you have access to, automatically creating new tabs for those lists, syncing the data every hour by default because of quotas. You want to be careful in terms of how frequent you're doing that. Syncing it directly into a sheet, ability to share outlist data to other spreadsheets, which I know Todd will go over. And then for end user, no coding involved if you don't want there to be. All of this is built and made possible by SKY API endpoints. If you're interested to hear a little bit more about the in the weeds, I have some contact information at the end that I'd love to communicate and contact you. So with that, hopefully that set the stage for those of us who haven't been here before with me. And then Todd's going to share a little bit about his experience using the tool.
Okay, so yesterday, Nick and I did a presentation, and we showed some of the use cases that we've come up with for SKY API Google integration. And so if you missed that, hopefully at the end we'll have a little bit of extra time and we can show you some of those. If you did miss the presentation yesterday, hopefully that video will be out soon, so you'll be able to watch it if you'd like. I met Nick about 2 summers ago, and he helped me set up this SKY API connection between Blackbaud, Advanced Lists, and Google Sheets. So Nick, I didn't thank you enough yesterday. I really am thankful for your time and for doing this and for setting us up, because it really has helped St. Albans School a great deal with all the solutions that we've come up with. Just a disclaimer for those thinking this is going to cost you extra money. St. Albans School does not pay for extra API calls from Blackbaud or Google. You can do this. You can do this so the process is easier. I'm sorry. You can pay Blackbaud and or Google for extra API calls, and it will reduce some of the issues that I've had with this connection. But it's not necessary if you follow these directions. Okay. So first thing, my mistakes. Okay, I made a whole bunch. I made some big ones. One big mistake is that I only used one Google Sheet for all my advanced lists. The next one is I was updating that Google Sheet every hour on the hour, and there were a lot of blank advanced lists, right? Why would there be blank advanced lists? Because I was trying to do it in the middle of the summer, and there is no attendance in the middle of the summer. Okay, so let's look at some of these. Okay. First question is, can I call all my advanced lists to run? Well, yes and no. So when I started the process, I started with one Google Sheet. Nick and I met, and I think I turned them on. I clicked on the sync list, and I synced one list at a time, but I continued to use that one Google Sheet to sync all those lists. Well, each Google Sheet only has one refresh for all those advanced lists. So what I was doing was I was pulling way too much data, and I caused a great deal of errors. So my suggestion or learning experience is, once you meet with Nick and you get that first Google Sheet, you're going to need to make a copy of it. And the more copies you make, the better it is, because the more refresh times you can have. Okay. The second error that I made was that one Google Sheet with all those advanced lists attached to it. I was updating it every hour on the hour, and again, the more advanced lists that I added, the more errors occurred. And again, the errors were occurring because I'm calling too much data and the blank advanced lists. Okay, can I update all my? How about those blank lists? Can I link them? Well, you're going to get this error if you do. However, what I recommend is for these items that can become blank lists, such as admissions data or attendance data or grades during the summer, is you actually create a separate Google Sheet for each of those advanced lists. And I'll get into that when I get into the suggestions in just a minute. But basically, if you have a whole bunch of advanced lists on one Google Sheet and a couple of them are blank, it can actually cause the errors to occur because of it. How do you know you have an error? Well, you know you have an error because you come into your office and your email looks like this. So one of the things that I'm also going to suggest later on to help you figure out where the error is occurring is making sure that you are naming your Google Sheet and your Google project the same name. By doing so, it's going to keep it organized, and it's going to help make it easier to find those errors. Okay, so let's go through this learning from my mistakes. The first one is make multiple copies of the Google Sheet linked to Sky API. So when you get a chance to meet with Nick, you guys are going to set up one. What you actually want to do is you actually want to then copy it. Now, you will have to go through all of the steps to sync it with Blackbaud again. So each one is going to have an additional process. The way that I organized mine is I made one Google Sheet for each department that I'm working with. And then based on those departments, if for some reason there was two advanced lists for those departments and they were at different refresh times, I would create an additional Google Sheet for that department. That way I could manage the refresh times differently. Okay, number two, consider how often each advanced list needs to be refreshed. So for example, your student data, if your students don't change very frequently, maybe that only needs to be updated once a month or once a week. However, your attendance information needs to be refreshed more frequently. So maybe that's refreshed 3 times a day. So just consider that when you're creating the advanced list, when you're creating your Google Sheets, what the refresh time is going to be for that data. Let's see. Don't call the same list. Don't call the same advanced list multiple times. And I definitely can tell you that I did this, and I probably still am doing it because I'm going through and trying to reorganize the process. But for example, if you call a student list for athletics, you don't need to call the same student list for your admissions, and you don't need to call it for grades. What you can do is you can reference or connect a different Google Sheet to that Google Sheet. So you're using that one advanced list one time, making that one call. I highly recommend, documentation. Document everything. And I'll show you later on, but basically what you want to do is you want to have documentation of each of your advanced list, where you're linking it to, when it's being refreshed, and the name of the Google Sheet that it's linked to. That way, when the mistakes, it's easier to find, and it also will help you to not have to call the same list twice because you'll have a reference and you'll be able to find where it is you're pulling it. Only one account should manage the Google triggers on the Google Sheets. I found that it causes errors if 2 people or have triggers on the same Google Sheet at the same time. It just does. So I recommend one person doing it. And then name each of your Google projects the same as the Google Sheet. And I think I'm going to repeat myself many times. That repetition is probably due to the pain that was caused by my mistakes that I made. So if I do repeat myself, I apologize. But I'm hoping to help us learn. Okay, there are limitations to this process. One of the limitations is no blank lists. And the examples during summer, right? Your attendance isn't going to, if you have a daily attendance advanced list during the summer, it's going to error out. And that's why I recommend if you are going to do like a daily attendance, that page, because it will error out in the summer, is you put it on its own Google Sheet. It's just on one Google Sheet all by itself. And then that way you can link to it. If it errors out, that's fine. It's blank data. But on the first day of school, because it is linked and it's set up, the data will populate. You can only access so much data. And that was the major issue I was having. With that first Google Sheet, by clicking all of the advanced lists and try to run them all at the same time every hour, of course, that was going to cause an error to occur. Now, there are API limits for Blackbaud and for Google. However, I've never hit Blackbaud limit. I do hit Google limit every once in a while, and that's why I changed the refresh time using the triggers on the Google Sheets. But you can contact Google and you can contact Blackbaud to increase your API limits, and that may solve most of these issues. Each Google Sheet will have advanced lists that all have the same refresh time. And so again, if you had a student list and attendance on the same Google Sheet, well, I just need the student list once a month, but I need the attendance every hour or every 2 hours, you would want to separate those two onto two separate Google Sheets so they could have separate refresh times. Okay, and then my suggestions. And again, I apologize if I repeat myself in any of these. First one is filter your advanced lists in Blackbaud as much as possible. Sometimes you can filter, sometimes you can't, but by filtering it in Blackbaud, it will reduce the amount of data that you're trying to call, and hopefully cut down on some of the errors. Try not to have the same data on multiple advanced lists if you don't have to. What would that be? That would be like parent emails or student addresses, right? You don't need to call it with a bunch of advanced lists. If you can just call a student list with the address and the phone number, you can then on other Google Sheets reference that information. Limit access to the DataSKY API integrated Google Sheet. Basically, the only people that have access to the DataSKY API integrated sheet are myself and the IT director. What I do is I link link the department Google Sheet that I'm sharing with the department to the DataSKY API integrated Google Sheet. So they do have access to the data. They just don't have access to the DataSKY API. And the reason why I do that, of course, is to reduce errors from occurring. And I'm going to show you how to link those later on in the presentation. Okay, plan which advanced list you're going to add to which DataSKY API integrated Google Sheet. Now, again, my plan was I did it by department. And then based upon the department, I would add additional Google Sheets if I needed different refresh times for different advanced lists. The biggest one is to create multiple copies of the DataSKY API Google Sheet. And again, that should solve or alleviate most of the issues. It solved most of my issues. And then the last one's just something I started was I created a Google Sheet for on-demand requests. And what this does is allows you to be able to click on the advanced list in the Google Sheet and just run that one advanced list. Then that tab can be linked to wherever your data destination is, and it will prevent you from having to log into Blackbaud, export the advanced list, save the advanced list where you need to be saved, and then link it. Because you set it up that one time using the on-demand Google Sheet, all you have to do is refresh by clicking the box and clicking refresh. Okay, we had mentioned this one before, but name your Google project the same name as your Google Sheet. And if you look at, so for one of the ones that I have, the top one, it says Athletics Day 5 a.m. I'm naming it the same name as I named the Google Sheet, and I'm putting the purpose. Again, I said mine were for departments. And then I'm letting myself know this one runs at 5 a.m. And the reason being is because if there's an error, I know that maybe I'm making too many calls at 5 a.m. The second one says major assignments March 8th. I know it's specifically for major assignments. It's actually calling the data for the month of March, and it runs at 8 p.m. Again, it helps me just to keep it organized and make it easy to find. Okay, make your advanced list dynamic. And so this is one of the things that I did not do, and it caused a great headache. But I highly recommend you do it if at all possible. And of course, the big things to make dynamic are the current school year and the current grade level. I don't recommend using school year 25-26, and I don't recommend using the graduation year. And the reason being is because the next year you would have to create a new advanced list for the new year or for the new grad year. But if you do it by current year and grade level description, every year that advanced list works for that specific grade. And to do that in your advanced list, you're going to look for objects, constituent information, add user register. Once you add that register, you'll now then have the ability to add the grade level, and you'll be able to add the school year so that you can access the current year, school year, current year, and grade level description. Okay, you're adjusting your Google Sheet refresh. And again, this was scary the first time I did it. but on your Google Sheet up at the top, you're going to click on Extensions, App Script, and you're going to click on Triggers. Once you click on your triggers, it's going to show you the 2 triggers that you have. It'll show you what your error rate are. So for these, the error rate is 0. And you can't see it, but there'll be a pencil over here to the far right. You can click on the pencil, and that will allow you to change the refresh time. Once you click on that pencil, what will happen is it'll open up, and then you can change your settings for your trigger. So you can change it from daily or every hour or every few hours. You can also create multiple triggers. If you copy those triggers, you could actually set it up so it'll trigger at 8 a.m., 10 a.m., and 12 a.m. I think I do that for attendance because that's what the request I got was they wanted it to update it those 3 times. Okay, tips and tricks. Naming conventions, checking for errors, documentation, and calendar. Okay, so the first one we've already gone over. I said rename your projects with the Google Sheet name and refresh time. When you create the project, and I put this up here, this is actually when you use this link, it'll actually take you and show your specific app script projects. And then you can actually go in and then rename them, or you can look at your different projects. But by default, I don't think they have a strange name that was confusing. So I do recommend that you change the names. Checking for errors. When you do get that email that says you have an error, make sure you do go in and look. And again, what would be the purpose of trying to figure it out? Well, there's lots of reasons the errors can occur. And but you kind of have to look at all the reasons why it may. You might have too many advanced lists checked on that Google Sheet. It might be that you have blank advanced lists. You may need to adjust your refresh time, and you may need to create another Google Sheet for that department. So those could all be reasons. Okay, documentation. Sorry about the color, but it helps me. Sorry, yellow indicates I need to do something, and luckily we don't see red. Red means bad. Okay, this is how I keep track of all of this. The ID column is basically the ID of the advanced list in Blackbaud, so that's the number. The name is the name of the advanced list. The category, this is the category that I use to organize my advanced lists in advanced lists. Purpose would be the department. And then the BIB, breaking the Blackbaud, is a name of the Google Sheet, and it actually links to the Google Sheet. And again, I did that so it's easier to get to and from. And then link to is the destination of the data. This is the department copy of the Google Sheet that they utilize. And then I have a notes column. In the notes, I'm just keeping track of whether it's dynamic or not, and then the future if I need to make any changes to it. It's just an idea to help you keep track and be organized. Okay. A big learning experience was calendar. I recommend you keep a calendar of what you need to do in order to update your Google Sheets if they need to be updated. But I highly recommend you make your data calendar in Sheets, not in Docs. I did it in Docs because that's kind of where I started. The problem with Docs is you can't then link it to your Google Calendar. If you create your data calendar in Google Sheets, you can actually link it to your Google Calendar, and that way, as you make changes to your data calendar, it automatically updates on your Google Calendar. Okay, we'll talk about the formulas. One of the most important parts that make all of this work, other than Nick, of course, is the formulas. The first formula I'm sharing with you is the import range formula. And basically what this formula does is allows you to connect the tab of one Google Sheet to the tab of another Google Sheet. And so this is what I use to link the department Google Sheet with the SKY API integrated Google Sheet. Yeah, it works great. The next one is filter and import range. And it's the same formula with the exception of I'm adding filter on, and you are referencing the sheet, the URL in sheet a second time. And why you would do this is because oftentimes, like for that student, the student list that I'm pulling out of Blackbaud may have too much information on it. And if I filter it, I can then filter it by lower school or upper school, and then provide that student list to 2 separate departments, but only having to use that one Google Sheet and one Google Sheet to access SKY API to do that. The query formula in Google, if you have not used it, is kind of like Power Automate. This formula allows you to take tabs. So in this example, we're taking 8 tabs, and allows you to combine all 8 of those tabs together into one tab. And again, the most difficult piece of this, of course, is your reference. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, there's no way I can do this. There is. I actually ask OpenAPI to help me with this. And I actually copy and paste my formula into OpenAPI, tell it what the problem is, and then it actually gives me the solution. So if you have not used it, I recommend using it. But this comes in really handy when I'm combining 8 different grading periods or 8 months of attendance, or with my major assignments, Power BI, it helps with that as well. Okay, again, I want to thank Nick for creating the integration between SKY API and Google Sheets, coming up with that app script, because it was a huge benefit to us.
Thanks, Todd. Todd, your organization with all of those pieces is, I'm so envious. It's just like so detailed with your, you're keeping your logs, you're keeping your calendars. It's very impressive. So I mean, and for everybody here, like, this is Todd's got some of the most robust usage of this that I've ever seen. It's really amazing. And I just wanted to call out a couple of things that I thought were really important. I would also want to say that, like, those formulas that Todd just showed, import range is essential to this process. It really is. But what Todd just showed, and Todd, I don't know if you want to even just go back a slide. Like, it was like, if you could just hit like left on the keyboard here, is just like a way to take import range to the next level, which is really, really cool. So that way you can, again, pull out the raw data and then deal with it. But some of the great points that you brought up of filter it in Blackbaud first, if you can, right? Limit the stuff that's coming down. I know you can do a lot in Sheets to manipulate things, but filter it in Blackbaud first. There's no reason to bring down 10,000 rows if it could be 2,000 rows of data. And there were 1 or 2 questions that I'll circle back to, but some things I just want to point out. Thanks, Todd. You can go to the end now. Is that, like, some of those embarrassing errors, those like blank list things, some of those things are definitely in the works of being remedied, let's say. So Todd was being very kind there. So there's definitely some updated versions of things in the works for blank lists and refresh times. But the thing that is really tricky and at the current moment is how advanced lists work. For those of us who are using SKY API users, is that it is returning 1,000 rows of data at a time for each time you're calling it. So that can only happen so fast versus some other API endpoints where you're pulling out a much larger set of data at once. So Todd, the one big question that came up was, are all of those scripts and things that you're doing on your Google account, Todd's Google account, or like a service account that your school has? So like a, help desk at, or something like that.
No, I did it all on my specific tpayton@stalbansschool.org Gmail account. It's all connected to that.
Awesome. I appreciate the joke chat. Just to be really clear, these are running through Todd's account and not my account or my API or anything like that. So yes, am I concerned about being called one day? Probably, but this is specifically the end users quotas that are being utilized for these sorts of things. I know we're a little bit early on time, which is great. Why don't we just pause for 10 seconds? If anybody else has any questions to add to the chat. I also put a little thing here. If you're interested in getting started with this solution or a different solution, you can reach out at colorcityconsulting.com or just email me. I'm also going to drop in the chat in an hour one about getting started with apps or reach out at the link on the screen. Todd, if you want to, I don't know if you want to show off some of your other examples. If we have a few minutes, we can.
Sure. Okay, left.
I know this is we are technically through our slide deck for this presentation, but because there was such great stuff in what we did yesterday, we're gonna roll through some of those as well because we have the time. So we'd love for you to stay and see some of the great examples of actual things that Todd has created with this that he referenced. But understand if you came yesterday and you like to bounce.
Okay, so first use case is
you have to switch your screen share, Todd.
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
Okay, this is. Okay, the place where this all started for me was with admissions. Our admissions office wanted to see, and during enrollment, wanted their enrollment data. They wanted to see how many contracts were completed by grade level. And the other big piece of this was Dazzle data, right? They wanted to automate the Dazzle. So I actually started to do this with on API, but I do have to tell you, it really annoyed me that every 3 months I had to go in and update the key, right? We don't have to do that anymore. So here's an example of admissions data, and this one's just showing re-enrolling. But what it does is it allows you to create an advanced list for your contracts through Sky API connected to your Google Sheet. And then this one it updates hourly. It actually has a separate tab for newly enrolling students. But at any point in time in the day, the admissions or the business office can look in and see how many students are at each grade level. And I do apologize, this is St. Albans school data. So Form C is 4th grade and Form 6 is 12th grade. But what it did is previously, they wanted to email me every day, several times a day, to know what it was, right? Because it's very important information. But once I provided this solution to them, no more emails, no more phone calls, because it was easily found. The next one was Dazzle, right? The Dazzle Index BIS. I mean, that's a monster. And you know, every year when August and September rolls around, people get really anxious and stressful about it. Well, what if we automated the data? And again, this is 2 advanced lists. It's a student advanced list because we need ethnicity and race. And then it's that same contract advanced list that I'm using for the contracts to create this one Google Sheet that provides admissions and the business office with the Dazzle and Index numbers. The next big one was rosters and student rosters and email lists for athletics. And it was because we have coaches that don't have access to Blackbaud. And so what this did, actually, we'll do that one first. What it did was it created these email lists. Oops, sorry. I got carried away. It created these email lists of students, the sport, the student email and the parent email. And we could then share it. We could then connect or link those Google Sheets, one for the coach and one for the athletics department, using that import range to give the coach just their student roster. The other issue that we had was at St. Albans School, we like the students to participate in 2 seasonal sports. And so how do you, when you have 600 kids, how do you identify, how do you know for sure, right? Well, so this is 2 advanced lists. It's a student advanced list, the same one we use for admissions. and then it's an athletic advanced list to show who's on which rosters. And we combine those together to get this so that when they go down the list, they can see who's missing a sport. And then basically this is the team list. So on that Google Sheet for the athletics department, they have all the teams, and then each of those tabs is linked to the coach's Google Sheet. Attendance was another big one. We wanted the nurse wanted attendance needed for students missing 3 days in a row, right? Because they need to call home. The deans for each of the grade levels the academic deans wanted the attendance for the whole grade level. So we came up with that. It's basically, again, 2 advanced lists. The student advanced list we talked about earlier, and now we're pulling attendance data. We combine those 2 together, and then we give each of the grade level deans their attendance by grade level. And the importance of this is you may have thresholds at your school. Our thresholds are 5 tardies and 10 tardies and 10 absences. That's when the dean needs to step in and have conversation with those students. The other big piece of this is it gives a count, right? In the very left-hand column, it has every student's name that's on that grade level, and then it actually shows you the count of how many tardies they have or how many absences they have, so that the teacher and or the dean can be, looking for students that are close to reaching those thresholds. And then again, the attendance for the nurse, it's just a daily attendance, the daily attendance advanced list, and it's looking for, sorry, it's not daily. I think it's the last 7 days, because remember, we're trying to filter as much as possible. And then we're looking for people that have missed 3 in that period of time. So I'm using a filter for those names appearing. Now it's a little different for us because we have upper school and lower school. Upper school's attendance is by class, and lower school is by day. So I had to do 2 separate ones for the nurse. The day one, of course, was easy to do. You're looking for anybody that appears 3 times on the list. The upper school was a little bit more difficult. We had to do it based upon the number of courses in the day. So we had to use a little bit of fancy calculation to make that one happen. For events, we have 2 solutions. The first one is the communications department wants to communicate with the parents a list of important events that are coming up, but they want specific event types. So again, it's an advanced list that I'm filtering for specific types. They want it formatted in this specific way, where it's the day of the week first, then the month, then what the event is. And they want it, I think, maybe bold or something. But basically what it is, it's a Google document that I've added script to. And don't get scared, I actually open API. As I asked it for help. I said, how do I get Google Sheet information into a Google Doc? And sure enough, it spit it out. And I think the only things I had to change are there's on the Google Sheet, it's got a reference, and on the Google Doc, it has a reference. And I just had to add those in. And I think the reference is actually in the URL. That's what you're pulling out. But anyways, I just followed the directions, and this Google document for Bulldog News Communications is connected to a Google Sheet that's connected to an advanced list through Sky API.
Hey, Todd, can you hear me?
Yes.
There's one question that came up, and I know a little bit of how we do it, but you do it in a much more robust way. So I'm curious for you to answer. Lauren asked, how do you manage access and security for the resulting sheets that you create? Do you create workspaces like in Fabric or Power BI? So that way you're being careful about your access and security.
Okay, so the security for each one of those is, again, I do not give anybody access to the actual Google sheet that's connected. I'm linking it to another Google Sheet, and then that Google Sheet I'm giving access to whoever requested it. And then that's a great question. How do I keep it organized? And hold on just a minute. I'm going to go to the very end of this, and then we'll come backwards so I can show. Oh, there it is. Okay. I actually use community groups and education management with the topic links to all the Google Sheets. So each department has its own community group. And in that community group, you I use the topics. Why do I use the topics? I use the topics because a lot of the solutions are used by multiple departments. And then that way I can just import that Blackbaud community group topic into all the different community groups. And I find that a really easy way to manage it. The other thing is I don't, before I started doing it this way, I would get those questions of, hey, can you send me that link again for this? Or, hey, can you send me that link again for this? Well, I stopped getting in those emails because now it's right there on in community groups. Now, I will share with you, some of this does not transfer to the business office. Like I tried to use this for the finance office and they specifically use more Microsoft than Google. But this was really a good solution for teachers, for our faculty.
And I'm going to just add one thing that I think is interesting for those of us who are in Google land, where, there are a couple of extra settings when you're sharing something where you can limit who can share those documents. Another way that I've played around with is things residing within shared drives that are locked down. And shared drives have additional permissions to ensure that files within them are not shared with users outside of the shared drive or external users outside of your organization. So shared drives might also be your friend in these moments.
Okay. Operations calendar. This calendar is used. It's an every 2-week calendar that our food services, maintenance, custodial, events, and security meet. I guess they meet every week. They wanted a calendar in a specific format. Graham Getty actually created this using Power Query, but you had to export the advanced list, save it in a specific place, and then click refresh. And I removed that by using a Google Sheet that I replaced the source data with. So this one's automatically updates. And so it became much more useful to those people that don't like to export the advanced lists. Okay, low grades. The academic deans were having difficulty identifying students who were getting low grades during the different grading periods. So what I did is this Google Sheets actually connected to 8 advanced lists. The advanced lists are for the different grading periods. So I did one advanced list for each grading period, and the filter on it is grades D+ or less. And then this is shared with the academic dean so that the dean can easily find those students. It's also shared with our teaching and learning program so that it helps them identify students either who are not receiving tutoring or who need to receive tutoring. And in addition to that, this doesn't show it, but I also attach their learning profile to it as well. I believe the learning profile has to be an export, though, that's not added dynamically. But I assume just they don't change that often so that the accommodations would be for the whole school year. Okay, major assignments. Major assignments is also created by Mr. Graham Getty. However, again, the way Graham created it was an export, an advanced list export that had to be placed in a specific place. You then had to publish you had to refresh the Power BI, publish the Power BI. It was a lot of steps. So what I did is I actually took, this is actually 8 advanced lists that connect to 8 Google Sheets. I did the major assignments for each month. And the reason why I did it was because it's too much data. And I realized I didn't want to keep pulling September's major assignments in May. So I used 8. And then I used that query formula that I showed you earlier. So all 8 of those advanced lists go to one Google Sheet. I use query to combine all of the data together. And then this is linked to that data. What is major assignments? Major assignments, we have an assignment type in Blackbaud Academics that is for any tests, exam, projects. The idea behind this is so that the academic dean and the teachers can see, make sure students are not having too many major assignments all in the same day or in the same week. So you can see that it allows you to click on the month, click on the day, and you can actually see which students are having which major assignments in which classes on those specific days. This has come in really handy. It took one thing off the upper school academic dean's plate of not having to do this export import because it automatically refreshes. Athletics came along and said, hey, Todd, we like that idea, but we only need to see those people that are after 1 p.m. because 1 p.m. is our time that is affected by sports. So it's very similar. The only addition was there is a advanced list export out of Blackbaud, which is scheduling by blocks, which actually has the blocks and the times on it. It helped me identify those blocks after 1 p.m. and that's what I imported, or that's what I linked to, and that's what it shows. And that way, the athletics can find those specific people that are affected on specific days by major assignments that they could be having a sporting event. Okay, some other uses really quickly. Faculty phone list. I know your faculty never changes, right? Their phone numbers never change, and their titles never change. But I know the person that always has to do this every year loves doing it. But what I did is I did the same thing I did earlier, where I took a Google Sheet, I connected it to an advanced list through Sky API, and it's just the faculty staff's name, their phone extension, and their title. And then I used that app script that I got from OpenAPI to link it to a Google Doc. The nice thing about the Google Doc is I can share it with everybody in the school. I can add it to a faculty resource, and then it updates automatically. I think I set it so it updates weekly. There are some issues with it, right? It's 2.5 pages. I prefer it was 2 pages, and it kind of runs off on the right side, the title name. So we've got some improvements to make. The next one is my newest one. This is a counselor wanted to know which students are accessing the school website between midnight and 6 a.m. Of course, why you wouldn't want your kids accessing the website. I mean, they're working too hard. And so this is an advanced list filtered by 7 days. And I apologize. I do have a topic, I think, for this one to add time as a filterable field. But right now you can't filter by time. And this I share with the counselors so that they can maybe have a conversation with that student that's logging in too many times during that time period. Semester room assignments, this is important. When the registrar is scheduling classes, she needs to know which rooms are open during which periods. This goes back to that advanced list I was telling you about. It's the block scheduling advanced list, which lists gives me the block, it gives me the time, it gives me the day, so that I could create this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. She can click on the different tabs, and she can see which classes are open at which time on which day, so that she can add classes very easily. Okay, and then again, I showed you the organizational piece. Again, with this, you do have to manage it a little bit, but you only have to manage it as you add or subtract members to the group. And I've actually turned it over to whoever it is that I've put in charge of that community group. And I kind of said, hey, I've given you the ability to manage it. Please feel free to add anybody you want. The nice thing is, right, just because they add somebody to the community group doesn't mean they get access to the actual links. Somebody has to go into the Google Sheets and actually give that access to that person. Yeah, I found it to be very useful. So I highly recommend doing that if you haven't done it. It is a lot of work, but it's highly effective.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd, for walking us through all those great examples. I think there haven't been any other real questions aside from John jumped in around some code on HTML on how to embed sheets within community pages. So that's good stuff. Again, if you set it and forget it, that's it. So again, if you all, thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Todd, for sharing some great examples. I hope to see and hear from a bunch of you I'll have a couple more sessions this afternoon and go back and see what I did this morning. And please make sure, I don't know if we're going to get our survey launched. It looks like maybe I could start the survey. No, I can't. But thank you so much. Oh, there she is. Great. Amazing. Thanks, Kristen.
Yep, you're welcome. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you all.